Hello and welcome to Pagabo Live, our initiative designed to promote knowledge in the public sector. My name is Tom, and over the last hour, we'll be talking about maximising social value and building better futures with our panel of industry experts, starting with Natalie.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Webb. I am the Social Value Manager for Ash Group. We are a construction and roofing company, main contractor based in Hitchin, Hertfordshire.
Excellent. Paul?
Paul Hutchinson, Development Director for RG Carter Cambridge Limited, part of the RG Carter Group, medium-sized building contractor based in the East Anglia area, operating across a vast range of sectors. And my role is heading up the pre-construction department for the Cambridge business.
Brilliant. And last but by no means least, Maxine.
Afternoon, I'm Maxine Long. I'm Social Value and Stakeholder Manager for Octavius. We are a Tier 1 contractor, predominantly in highways and rail. And my role is Social Value and Stakeholder Management for the A1331 scheme in Colchester in Essex.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much all for joining us today. So today's session is a panel discussion where we'll take a look at what social value means in 2025, talk about some of the most up-to-date methods for measurement and tracking, and examples of how social value can be successfully embedded and maximised within projects. We'd also love it if the audience could get involved as well today. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you like using the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're depending on what version of Zoom you're using, it may be hidden behind the three dots on the more option. But yeah, open up that Q&A box and feel free to pop in as many questions as you like throughout today's webinar. We'll also be running our usual polls to gauge throughout the session to gauge people's knowledge and understanding of the topics we're discussing. So we'll bring up the first poll now, which is one that we usually run on every single session to gauge where you are at the start of the session. So how confident are you in your understanding of social value? So 1 being no understanding and 4 being a very strong understanding. Feel free to vote now. We'll just give you 10 seconds on that so we can get a bit of a read of where we're pitching this session today. And if you could close that poll now, please. Super. So the good news is we're not starting with anyone with no knowledge whatsoever. So we don't necessarily have to go to the Janet and John version of what social value is, but some good opportunity there to grow some knowledge from those that are in the 2s and 3s. So thank you very much to those that responded to that question. And we'll move on to our first question for the panel now. And I'll make sure this one goes to all of you because it's quite a broad one and I want to get your views on it all. So we'll start with you on this one, Maxine. So what does building better futures through social value mean to you and to Octavius?
Thank you. To us at Octavius, building better futures through social value means really kind of leaving a lasting legacy and meaningful and impactful kind of community well-being. So making sure that the communities that we're operating in within particular projects can really see, justifiable, tangible benefit to the local communities, and also aligning those with obviously, client and local authority responsibilities. So it's really that kind of alignment of making sure that we leave a lasting legacy.
And Natalie, from your guys' perspective at Ash, what does building better futures mean to you?
Very similar to Maxine. Actually, one of the Ash's strap lines is building better. So we look at kind of empowering the community, investing in skills and education, leaving those kind of, as Maxine said, lasting legacy impacts in all that we do and the builds that we undertake.
And Paul, is it a similar story for you guys?
Similar, yeah. I mean, actually, our strapline is very similar. It's building for the future for the business. To us, it's about giving back to the industry, giving back to the community. For the industry, supporting the local supply chain, work placements and experience for students, apprenticeships. We're very keen on that. We've got a small academy in Norwich where we help bring in several apprentices, both trades and academics each year. Similarly for the community, as part of a day job whilst we're building, we can also give back to the community, supporting community groups, helping local non-construction suppliers, sort of VCSEs, everything, well, where we can find them really, but it's, you know, everyone from sort of like people who do sandwiches and things. And we've also got a company that we utilize across some of the offices called the Horticultural Industry Scheme, where they employ ex-offenders, helping get back into work and getting them NVQs, etc. So it just means as part of a day job, we can also give back and help.
Brilliant. Well, a really good broad mix of what social value actually means in a day to day, and we'll talk about some of the projects that you guys have all worked on in terms of social value later on in today's webinar. We'll move on to our second question now, and I'll put this to you first, Natalie. Why is social value now seen as essential to how the public sector delivers its projects?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So I think we've always known that it's the right thing to do, but I think the recent legislative changes and policy updates have been the real driver behind why it's now so imperative. So expanding on that, the Procurement Act in 23 was introduced, came into effect at the beginning of this year, following changes from Brexit, really, and alongside that, we had the National Procurement Policy Statement, the NPPS, which makes social value a clear priority now, which contracting authorities are legally required to regard. So the piece of legislation really tells you kind of what we need to do. Then we've kind of got the how will we do that, which from my understanding comes from the changes in the social value model. We've got an update to the procurement policy notice. So we've moved from the PPN 0620 to the PPN 002, which now aligns the government's 5 missions. So your economic growth, becoming a green superpower, taking back our streets, addressing barriers to opportunity, and ensuring the NHS fit for the future. So together that kind of strengthens the whole model. The PPN also mandates the 10% weighting for social value in central government tenders. So we're moving from the kind of the meat, the most economically advantageous tender, where it really came down to price and quality, to MAT, so the most advantageous tender, which now allows for that broader consideration with social, environmental, community impact. And now we've got the standard reporting metrics and KPIs as well. So that's been built into the contract and means that social value isn't just something we talk about, but it's now something we measure and deliver on. So overall, it's not that just nice to have anymore. It's now embedded in public sector projects through both kind of procurement and delivery, and ensuring that there's accountability for public spend at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Maxine, the PPN and the Procurement Act really have enshrined, haven't they, what we've always known around social value and how valuable it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also formalize that and given us a really robust framework with which we can work from and we can work within. I think there's been, you know, as the whole panel has kind of touched on, you know, organizations have been delivering social value in essence, you know, since day dot. But actually now that we can really record on that and measure and really, you know, understand the benefit within those local communities, I think it's also ensuring that we are making sure that public money is working a lot harder and a lot smarter. We know that public resources are you know, are scarce and are stretched, and actually ensuring that that responsibility for social well-being, you know, skills development, community well-being, you know, enhancements to young people and skills and employment is passed on to, you know, public contractors. I think has really kind of formalized and made that whole process much more robust with the legislative changes.
Yeah, thank you both. It's a really good view on the need of it to be essential within projects at the moment. And that takes us nicely into our second poll of the day. If we could fire that up now, please. So how do you see legislation supporting stronger social value outcomes in the future? So is it about setting clearer national standards, as Maxine alluded to? Is it around driving consistency across frameworks? Is it encouraging innovation and flexibility? Or is it by improving transparency and reporting? I imagine there's probably an element of all of those for everybody, but it's asking you for one choice. So if you had to nail your colours to the mast, how do you see legislation supporting stronger social value outcomes in the future? And if we could close that poll now, please. So an interesting split there. It's looking like 44% saying that it is around those clearer national standards that Maxine mentioned. But there's also a number of 34% saying that it's around improving the transparency and reporting as well. Interesting, though, only 5% have said that it's encouraging innovation and flexibility. So something we might touch on in our next question, which we're going to put over to you, please, Paul. So Procurement Act has been mentioned in PPM, but how can procurement be a driver for social value, Paul?
I think from our perspective as a sort of a medium-sized builder, it can, and as I say, it is about localism for us as well, and it helps by supporting local economic growth. So we're putting back into the communities, local supply chain, etc. It helps promote fair and inclusive employment as well, and being a fair opportunities employer, that helps with the local supply chain. It also, social value can also help in advancing environmental and sustainability issues in the area as well, together with enhancing community well-being. The local community groups that we work with, it's vitally important that we are bring those sort of people on at early stages and engage with them, so we get the benefit of what they want rather than what we think they want. It encourages ethical supply chains. As I touched on earlier, regarding skills, it helps build the skills and capacity within the industry. And as Natalie said, you can now measure embodied social value in all the projects, and so it can help show tangible results across the industry.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Paul. We're going to move on to a question which is interesting, is one that's coming already from our audience. So very keen on the questions, which we really like to see. And that is around what tools and metrics best demonstrate the impact of social value delivery. We'll go to you on this one first, Natalie.
So I think for us at Ash, we use Thrive, and I know that we've obviously got Loop and we've got the social value portal, and they're the three biggest ways of kind of measuring your impact using kind of data that we can collect and input into the system, that is run from kind of it takes from the ONS data. So they've each got their own case of metrics that we can input against. They're the three the biggest ones, but I think there's lots of companies that set up their own databases and ways of measuring and forecasting their data. We've kind of got the standard reporting metrics as now that come in from the PPN02, which is what aligns with the government's missions that I mentioned earlier.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Natalie. Maxine, some tools and metrics that you guys are using.
Yeah, similarly. So we use Thrive actually at Octavius, and we found it a really great tool, really really clear and really transparent in terms of the the data that we are inputting and capturing on our projects, but also the way in which we are reporting and also feeding that back to our clients. So we are using that in a way that we can kind of capture the data on the activities that we're delivering, but also use that to kind of forecast impact that may have kind of on local communities. So it will give us kind of hours appropriated to certain parts of the project. It may give us value metrics appropriated to certain aspects of the project. So it allows us to kind of utilize and diversify that data depending on who we are reporting that to, and what decisions you want to make with that. So particularly when it comes to future works or bids or new tenders that may come up, we're able to really evidence the existing impact and the existing work that we've done within those communities, to strengthen that legacy prospect that we're working towards.
Excellent. And finally, Paul, RG Carter, what is it that you guys use in terms of social value measurements and metrics?
We're pretty much the same. The social value portal, Thrive, Loop. In the main, it's Thrive. It works for us in terms of looking at, particularly in the early stages of a project, because we tend to as part of our tender launch, as soon as we're starting off a new project, we talk about social value in the actual project. There's a couple of our clients, local authority clients, who actually ask for, as part of the bidding process, to demonstrate what social value input you're going to have into a project as you're tendering it as well. That gives us the ability to look at the sort of quantitative metrics, financial and non-financial, any sort of social community engagement, and the financial benefits of that as well. So it tends to be a good tool just to give you all that information up front, and also sets the sort of the construction team's mind focused at an early stage on what they need to achieve in not just building a building, but also the engagement they have to have with the local community.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul, and to all of you for being patient while we had some slight technical difficulties there on the slides. And this is the moment of truth, because we're going to try and move on to the next slide and see what happens. Excellent. There we go. And it's time for another poll, please. So if you can fire that up now. How does your organization currently track its social value? So is it with Excel and spreadsheets, like we know a lot of organizations do? Is it a digital tool or software like the panel have spoken about just now? Is it something that isn't formally tracked by your organization, or is there another? And if there is another, please feel free to pop it in the Q&A box, and we can discuss it towards the end of the webinar. So Excel spreadsheets, digital tools or software, we don't formally track it, or other, for how your organization currently tracks its social value. If you could close that poll now, please. Wow, that's about as even a split as we've seen on Pagabo Live over the years. So 33% say Excel spreadsheets, 35% say digital tools and software, and 31%, interestingly, don't formally track it. So that's one that I'm sure we'll come back to in the Q&A at the end of the webinar. Moving on to our next question, and it's about how organizations can sort of better understand communities and respond to those local community needs. We'll go to you first on this one, Maxine, because it's something that's really important, isn't it? Social value shouldn't be something that's done to communities, it should be something that's done alongside them.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say for Octavius, the key part that drives our social value strategy on any project is also a link up with a stakeholder engagement plan and a stakeholder communications plan. And I think these two items of activity go hand in hand, because we work very, very closely with our pre-identified stakeholders, and within that, that's kind of an evolutionary tool. So we add key stakeholders as the project unfolds, and as we gain more stakeholders in the project. So and that's really key to setting our social value strategy, because that really gives us the opportunity for a feedback loop to really understand what are the local community needs. And we use that as a stakeholder plan and a communications plan, not only to engage general public, to engage local residents and businesses that are directly affected by the scheme, by local figures and council members and local authority public figures, but also in terms of using that to work with our client on a feedback loop. So we will gather information and gather networks and contact points for what does the community need on the ground and how can we best support them, but also making sure that we use that in a loop fashion with our client to ensure that that aligns with local authority priority need. And so that's really kind of how we evolve our social value strategy, is by using that communications plan alongside that. So we have set points within the project where we hold public engagement opportunities for them to come and discuss the project and how things are evolving, but also allows us to really harvest that information that's coming directly from the local community to say, well, actually, if you are here, this is what we really need on the ground. This is what the local community needs. Sometimes, there's projects where they are split very much in areas of affluency and areas of real deprivation and need, and how we can make sure we align best with the different community groups that exist within those areas. And so I think a robust communication and stakeholder plan really supports a social value strategy, for any organisation, any project plan, really.
Excellent. And Paul, does that sort of tally with your experience?
Couldn't put it any better myself. Yeah. No, Maxine's right. Social value is not a generic thing you can do on a sort of a ad hoc basis. It's specific to your job. So understand on a job by job basis what social value means in context, and engage directly with the community. Having that stakeholder plan, I think, as Maxine said, is vital. Use the data and evidence provided to maximise the potential. Um, um, you need to build long-term relationships as well, and this helps build long-term relationships with the communities that you work in, which in turn, being honest, can help you get repeat business if it's all done right. You need to align your business goals with the local priorities. You can't go and impose what you think they want. You've got to understand what they need. And then, as Maxine said, getting the feedback and checking how things are going, that's vitally important as well. That sort of continual loop of improvement is vital for delivering it and delivering it well.
And of course, particularly in the case with some of the more major projects that are very much long lasting and on long build programs, that feedback loop's absolutely essential, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll go to Maxine on this one to get your views on it in terms of how we can ensure social value benefits are A, inclusive, and B, also long lasting. So by the time the diggers have left site, it isn't just forgotten about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, similarly to the last question, really, it's making sure that we are listening very keenly to the local community needs and understanding where that element of inclusivity needs to be prioritized. So, whose needs are, at most, of importance really within the local community, and how can you make sure that those activities are long lasting. So as Paul touched on earlier on, it's really working with your skills development, your local economic growth development aims, working with your schools and your colleges to develop skills, industry understanding, critical need, but also working with those community partners on any project to make sure that once you have packed up and gone, there is still that tangible benefit to the community. And that's something that we've been doing really well in Colchester. So we've worked with a local gardens and nursery. We've got the Beth Chatto Gardens that are right on our doorstep. We've been able to work with them on planting initiatives, supplying equipment and kit for them. But what that's allowed us to do is develop quite a strategic relationship with them, whereby they will be looking to offer, now that they can evidence, they will be able to offer better landscaping packages to other schemes and developments within Colchester, because they've now been able to capture the data and evidence their impact to support wider schemes within the local community. So it's really kind of making sure that those legacy relationships are also developed in such a way that once you're gone and you remove yourself, you've interconnected the relevant parties and stakeholders to be able to continue within the community long after your departure.
Yeah, very nicely put there. It is about that long-lasting legacy, isn't it, and the impact that you've all talked about throughout the session so far. We'll go on to another poll question now, because we've found some really interesting things out from these polls so far today. So, how confident are you that your organisation is creating that meaningful social value? And we've heard some good. We'll hear some good examples of that in one of our next questions that's coming up. But how confident are you that your organisation is creating meaningful social value? So very confident, it's embedded in what we do. Fairly confident, we're making good progress. You're just starting out and building that structure and awareness, or you're just really beginning on that social value journey. Interesting to see how this compares and contrasts to the last question around measurement. So if we could close that poll now, please. So around half of those that voted have said that they're fairly confident in their organisations creating meaningful social value, which is really good. I think that one of the challenges that people do perceive with social value is that it can occasionally be a tick box exercise and done just to get on to the next job. Whereas it's good to see that long lasting legacy type approach seems to be quite prevalent in our audience today. So great to see. So we're going to move on to some sort of case study examples, and I'd like to get one from all of you, if at all possible. So can you share a project where social value was delivered successfully, and most importantly, what actually made that work? What was it that made that project successful? We'll go to you on this one first, Paul, please.
One of the examples, I think, was where we delivered the development for 3 developments in Bowthorpe, Care Village. It was, I think, the collaboration between Lion Homes and Norwich City Council it was the significant contributor to its success. Similar to what we've just been talking about, the fact that you're engaging with the client, with the communities, you understand what they need, and you bring in everyone together, having that stakeholder management plan and understanding their requirements. You're sitting down together at an early stage and setting the plan out so as you've got all the success measures in place as how you need to develop it. Over the period of time, it gave invaluable experience to students and school leavers and people like that to see how work was happening in the community. There was all sorts of community groups that we were working with as well. So it's that sort of early engagement and close collaboration with the teams. With the whole thing, as I say, for the construction team, not being an afterthought. It was something that was part of the day job that they delivered on a regular basis.
Brilliant stuff. And Natalie, from your perspective, some examples of where a project has had social value delivered successfully, and the what in terms of what made it work.
Yes, certainly. I think one of the ones that that comes to mind that was procured through the Major Works Framework, Pagabo, was a school extension for Sandy Secondary School. So an existing secondary school, and then we built a 2-story teaching block that had a dedicated single-story send provision in it. So similar to Paul, working with the client, working with the school, to kind of look at what we could do during the build and make sure that everybody's priorities were aligned and what we were delivering suited the community, suited the end user, the school, ultimately at the end of the day, and the community that used the school. Because part of the teaching block, we also added a kind of an all-weather sports pitch. So that was then going to be used by the local community as well. So engaging with that community to look at kind of how that could be used. We had apprentices working on that project. We created new local jobs through kind of our supply chain on that project. What else we did? Sorry, this was slightly before my time, this one. So I've got some notes on what we delivered here. We worked with the VCSE Encore Environmental to come in and deliver a student-led environmental art competition using kind of recycled materials. So that was kind of raising the awareness of the sustainability aspect of the social value and celebrate kind of that student creativity. We had another VCSE food etc. come in within the unit that we'd built was the home economics. I think that's what it's still called, classrooms. That's what it was in my day anyway. And so we had them come in and deliver some cooking workshops for disadvantaged students. So some of our ASH staff went in and volunteered, and just kind of basic cookery skills to kind of encourage the children and their families then to kind of eat healthily and using the new facilities. So that one worked really well. There was lots of different elements of social value on that. And then obviously kind of our local spend that we had, using lots of local contractors, local materials, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think home economics is called food technology in mind. I don't know whether it's still gone back round the loop to home economics. Who knows? Great stuff. Just before we go onto Maxine's response to this question, just a reminder, you can get any questions in for our panel to your Q&A section. You can access that at the bottom of your screen. If it's hiding away from you, it might be behind the more options at the bottom of your screen, but please feel free to put as many questions as you'd like in for our panel, and we'll hopefully get round to as many of those as we can before the end of today's session. So we'll wrap the kind of project side of things up with you, Maxine. So a project for you guys at Octavius where social value has been delivered successfully, and what made it work successfully for you and for the community.
Yeah, so I've touched on kind of two areas in previous questions, but on the Colchester project specifically, we've two really key areas of success has been our relationship with Colchester Institute, who's the largest further education college in North Essex, and they have about 10,000 students ranging all the way from kind of level 1 construction skills all the way up to kind of degree level, and so we knew there was a great opportunity to work really collaboratively with them to support them, not only from a student skills and industry insight opportunity, but also to T-level placements. So we've got work experience students that are starting collaborating with us. Octavius themselves have also got an internal business goal, touched on what Paul said earlier about aligning your goals, to increase representation of females across the business at Octavius. Likewise, working with the college, they had an internal drive to increase female representation across their construction engineering courses. So, you know, they kind of bit my hand off when I said I wanted to come and work with them, because they really wanted that female representation within their cohorts, and that transpired into applications from females on construction design T level placements, to want to come and learn more about the business and understand the different roles that exist within, you know, construction infrastructure. So that's been a really positive, collaborative, long-lasting relationship that I believe will exist long beyond, you know, the scheme, because you know, there's a wealth of opportunity to support the college in a range of different areas. So whether that be through, you know, we've donated tools and equipment to some of their workshops. We've also supported with, they have some CPD sustainability days that they're delivering for their teaching staff. So ways that we can support those with using our internal sustainability and ecology members of staff within Octavius. So that's been a great successful relationship within the scheme that I think will continue to benefit, you know, their priorities as well as ours as long as the project continues.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you very much, guys, for sharing some of those examples of where social value has worked really well for the local community, and also for you guys in terms of how you've put the how you've executed that social value. So we're going to move into our Q&A section shortly, but I'd like to go to the panel once more just to ask them for a key takeaway from the conversation and one key point that viewers should take away from today's session. And we'll start with you, Natalie.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I always say is that social value isn't a bolt-on; it's a built-in. And I think if you have that kind of approach when looking at your bids, looking at your tenders, looking at your delivery, it's kind of a powerful tool to make sure that we do build better futures. It can be really embedded with purpose, transform public sector projects, and create lasting opportunity and legacy community impact.
Excellent. I really like the it's not a bolt-on, it's a built-in. That's a good phrase. I'll if that's not an Ash one, I'm nicking that.
I might have coined that one.
Natalie Webb trademark. We'll go to you next on this one, please, Maxine.
Yeah, similarly, actually, you know, we at Octavius, we kind of say the Octavius way is not, you know, delivering social value because because we're required to, but actually because it's the right thing to do. And we kind of use that as our kind of, you know, our guiding point in terms of the strategies that we deliver, and making sure that are we doing the right things for the right people in the communities that we're operating in. So I think making sure that you retain that sense of you know, morality, if that's the right thing, you know, are we doing things the right way for the right reasons for the right people? But also I would say that a takeaway from today would be absolutely to nurture and listen to your community stakeholders. They are the eyes, the ears, the feet on the ground. They will be the ones that will be supporting you to deliver something that truly is meaningful and impactful within that local community. And as you touched on earlier, Tom, it's not something that we bring to the community and do for them or on behalf of them, but it's actually alongside them. We can be, you know, the figures, we can be the facilitators, we can be, you know, the public speakers if we need to be. We can, you know, gather people together and harvest that you know, connectivity. But ultimately, you want to ensure that when you step away, that legacy continues and that work continues to be delivered, you know, long after you've departed.
Absolutely, it's about development being a catalyst rather than the create cause of it. Yeah. And Paul, key takeaway from you before we go into our audience Q&A.
Very similar to what Natalie said, really. You know, from our perspective, don't leave it to the last minute to consider it. It starts at day one. As I said earlier on, we have it as part of our tender launch process. So when a project comes through the door and we launch it and understand, we set the details of who's doing what, where, when, and how. Social value is one of the key things that we look at straight away to understand what can we do, how you can embed it into the project, and how you can deliver it well. So you can't just leave it till later on and then consider it just as the tender's being adjudicated. You've got to set your stall out from day one.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much to all three of you for your contributions so far. I will be picking your brains further with the audience Q&A, but just before we go into that, we'll wrap up with a final poll question, which is reviewing of today's content. How confident are you now in your understanding of social value? Now, there weren't many people down at 1 to start off with, so hopefully no one's gone backwards in their understanding of social value from today. So 1 being no understanding and 4 being a very strong understanding. So quickly vote now, please, before we go into the Q&A, and we will review those results before we proceed. If we could wrap up the poll now, please. Excellent. So there's been a really strong move into those top 2 positions. So well done to you as a panel today for getting people up to 40% in that very strong understanding, which I think I might be going off anecdotal records here, but I think that's probably the most we've had in the kind of that number 4 section on Pagabo Live. So well done to the 3 of you for your work on today's session. So we are now going to go into our audience Q&A. We've got a few questions coming in, but if you'd like to add some more, feel free to. You can pop them in using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Now, one of the things that was noted quite clearly as we went through, which was a surprising stat to me, is that 31% of attendees don't formally track their social value. Maxine, thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, I think, as I touched on, we use Thrive as a reporting tool and reporting software, but and it's great for us in being able to record and measure. But actually, I think if you're in an organization where you are tracking or you're using not such sophisticated software, I don't think it needs to be the be all and end all. As long as you're capturing and you've got a database and you've got a record of the activities that you intend to do, you're collating the information as it's delivered, you're monitoring how much time is being spent in certain areas of the framework or the commitments that you've pledged your time to, then it need not be so sophisticated, because you'll be working towards capturing the impact there and then, because it's either you're going to use that for future evidence, or also you're going to use that for future decision making. So I think if you haven't got something formally tracking, or you're not in an organization whereby you're using a digital tool, I think as long as you've got a way of allocating time and resource against the different elements of the plan, then that's still a great place to be.
Yeah, can I just jump in on that
Of
point
course,
as well?
yeah,
because I think 100% what Maxine said, but I think you do need to be aware, with the legislative changes, that there are KPIs that you need to now demonstrate against. So there does need to be some level of tracking that, but like Maxine says, it doesn't need to be the most sophisticated tool. I think depending on how many projects you're working along, how big your social value team might be, that will all come down to kind of you looking at that in-house, I think, to work out the best way to do that. But I do think it does need to be tracked in some way, shape or form.
Case of not letting perfect be the enemy of good, and just trying to get started and have some way of recording it.
Yep. Absolutely. And then when the opportunity for new projects arise and you're putting in a bid or a tender, you've got this bank of information you can draw upon to really help you write those bids and hopefully win you those contracts.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, questions coming from Pippa Farr. Thank you, Pippa, for your questions. So she's speaking as a public sector client, and they're currently reviewing and strengthening their approach to social value within the tender process, in terms of how they framing how they ask the question and also assessing the responses. So we'll go to you on this one first, Paul, but feel free to jump in afterward, Maxine and Natalie. From your perspective, what makes a good social value question that feels meaningful and enables you to demonstrate real impact within that tender process? And conversely, what kind of question makes you roll your eyes?
Probably starting with the latter. Questions that make me roll the eyes are more questions which are generic, not focused, and good questions are about how you will deliver tangible results in the community with the supply chain, etc. Also good questions asking you for proof, evidence on what you've done before, how you've delivered it. What can you bring to the table? How can you help with that particular project, with the community, with that local authority? I think that's probably the sort of thing that we like to see when we get these sort of things. As Natalie and Maxine have said, it's now legislation. You've got to do it anyway. And we were like yourselves. We've done it as a matter of course for forever and a day. And we've been very, very poor in the past at recording it. We now got our act together a good few years ago, and we've started recording it. And Loop and Thrive are tremendous vehicles for actually recording all this, and it then gives you the ability to, for your own organization, to learn by the lessons of what you've done before, to improve, to actually deliver social value in a better way over a period of time. And we are only a medium-sized building company, but we're sort of all over the East Anglia area, and that gives us, have all that information recorded, lets us share the best practice across the group, so we can deliver in a uniform way from all the operating bases. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
It does indeed. Natalie, anything from you there?
Yeah, I was just going to add, as Maxine was saying earlier on, and Paul as well, your community, you're the public sector department. You're going to know who your community are, what your priorities are. So set your questions around what your priorities are, whether that could be children leaving care, a big homelessness issue in your area. Set your questions around what your objectives are within your department.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. I think as much transparency on local, impact priorities as possible really helps us pull forth and quantify the measurable impact that we've had on other schemes or other projects, or where we're trying to evidence our capabilities as a group and an organization. And the second point of the question, I would say yes, absolutely. If there is an opportunity to include any organizations or any work that's currently being delivered that we can strengthen or enhance or add value to, absolutely, because what we would love to be able to do is provide the richness of the social value that we deliver within communities, and often is the case, the opportunity for that richness and that kind of snowball effect of social value that unfolds as the project delivers is not so easy to capture. So yeah, any opportunity, like Natalie said, to really paint a picture of what your local priority needs and aims are absolutely helps us on the other side.
And we've got another question that's coming from Eliza Smith, which actually does kind of follow on slightly from that idea of where to get that community intelligence from. So Lisa said, rightfully so, a lot of conversations today about been working with the community on delivering what they need and what they want. But she's keen to know that how you establish this. How do you go about that stakeholder engagement process, and who is it in the communities that you reach out to? Hopefully, as we said, the local authority there is potentially quite helpful in that tender process. But if that isn't the case, where do you start on that? We'll go to you on this first, Natalie, but feel free to jump in, any of you, Maxine or Paul.
Yeah, I think as Maxine alluded to earlier, having kind of that stakeholder engagement plan, I think really helps. There's plenty of places where you could do kind of a local needs analysis, just getting into the community to really go and talk to people, to find out kind of what the priorities are. I mean, for us, we work very heavily with the public sector, so going to kind of the client is always our first port of call. I've actually got a background working for a local authority, so I've got an awareness of kind of where the priorities might lay, and kind of the agencies, the organisations that may be able to help. But tapping into the kind of the client and the local need is definitely the way to go.
Yeah,
I think Maxine's got a lot of background and experience doing the stakeholder engagement side.
To get in there.
I didn't want to lose my point before it dropped out of my head. But no, similarly, I think and Natalie's absolutely right. I think your local authority is the right place to start, absolutely. But I think also don't lose sight of the opportunity to tap into your supply chain, to tap into your local workforce. I think those people that are living and working within the communities that the project enables are a really good source of intelligence. And really, I think in terms of the starting point, it is absolutely about just getting out and about. It's about getting out in the community, talking to people, whether that be that you just want to introduce yourself. Hi, we're here on the scheme, we're delivering this project, these are our aims, these are our objectives, this is how long we're going to be in the area for, and we want to make, as much of a meaningful impact within this community as we can for the right reasons. And I think just starting with that as an introductory message actually goes a really long way. And I've had a lot of great feedback on that, where you're really just, you're nurturing relationships, you're building connections, and one thing will lead to another. And it may be that actually there are many people that you encounter that perhaps you can't support in the way that they wish to be supported or need to be supported, but you can absolutely find opportunities to collaborate or signpost or connect with others that perhaps can support in the way that those organizations and those stakeholders can be supported.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
agree with what you said.
sorry, Paul, go on.
I was just going to say, I agree with what you said. Go out there and engage with supply chain and also your own staff. That's why we like to have that. This is part of our tender launch to get things going, because a lot of our staff, our site managers and project managers and all that, live in the areas which we're building. So we ask them or them and their families. Have you got any community groups or so on and so forth who have needs, who have requirements, who we could work with on these sort of future projects. So get the information from wherever you can. There's plenty of things you can research on the internet, the local authorities, as you mentioned. So, but yeah, your supply chain and your own staff really as well.
We used to work with a contractor who used to swear by just going to the local pub in the area that they were going to be working in, and just listening to the conversations that people were having and see what they were complaining about and see what they could potentially solve. So we've had a question that's come in around. It is unfortunately around percentages and fixed percentages of tender value specifically for social value. So we'll pop this one in your direction, Maxine, but feel free to bat it back if it's not something you're comfortable talking about. So in speaking with other public sector clients, this question has come in saying that they've seen a growing interest in allocating a fixed percentage within the tender value specifically for social value. Is this a process that you support? And if so, what percentage do you feel is kind of reasonable and proportionate? It's a bit of a how long is a piece of string question, I think, depending on what the project is, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, coming back earlier in terms of the key takeaways from the attendees here was around transparency. So I think if we're talking about transparency of public sector money, then actually I think we should be aiming for, minimum benchmark percentages of what an organisation would and should be delivering on any scheme. I think it can be, like you said, kind of arbitrary in terms of what that figure looks like. What is 20% of a £1 million project versus 20% of a £30 million project is a very different kind of offering. I think it's always good to have something in mind that you're working towards, because as we said, we're talking about being transparent, we're talking about being trackable, we're talking about being able to evidence, but also it gives us an opportunity for additional added value. So actually, if we're talking about minimum requirements being X on a particular scheme, from an organisation in terms of meaningful, impactful delivery, we want to always be aiming way above and beyond, minimum delivery. So it gives us kind of that starting point. For me personally, I think there is value, and it's helpful in terms of our delivering our strategy, because we know then where to prioritise. And I think for some schemes or for some organizations, it can feel very much like a box ticking exercise. How can we meet that value? How can we get to that figure through various means? But for us at Octavius, it's much more about where does that strategic priority lie that supports the local community. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a really comprehensive answer, and thank you for taking that one on. It's always a little bit of a dodgy one as to whether people want to take that to commit to saying a certain percentage or a certain approach. So appreciate you taking that one on. I'm gonna put one towards you, Paul. I hope you don't mind me sharing with the audience here that you've been in the industry for quite a while.
Yeah.
How has social value and the industry's approach and outlook on social value changed in the years that you've been working in the built environment?
Um, A tremendous amount. I mean, way when I started in the industry, you were there to go and do a job. You built a building and that was it, simple as. And I've getting back then into sort of before the turn of the century, things started to change where we were working with clients who were more focused on social value in one form or another. And I remember for a number of years I ran one of the accounts with one of our retail clients, and it was significantly aimed at delivering social value, although we didn't refer it in that way at the time. And things have changed dramatically, and now I think it is seen as part of your day job. And even before we had to record it, or we have to, before legislation says we had to do it, we've spent many years doing it now. And I think it's a good thing, because it's not only good for what you achieve, what output you give to the local authorities, to the communities, etc. It also gives, generally, I find, a tremendous sense of well-being to your own staff to deliver these things, and to help the community groups, and help get people back into employment, and help deliver this sort of tangible benefits. So yeah, it has changed. Well, beyond all recognition, it's gone from nothing to to a great commitment, really, for everyone.
Yeah, and Natalie and Maxine, you've not been in the industry quite as long. We're both got, Mine was saying, comparatively new to the world of social value from a contractor perspective. So we'll go to you first on this one, Natalie. But I'd like the same question to you, Maxine. Is what struck you about how social value is undertaken but not just the built environment, but also from a contractor perspective?
So I think coming into the industry, do you mean?
Yes.
I think so. I've got a background, and I think Maxine's fairly similar background in kind of careers education. So I'd kind of been on the other side of social value. So I'd seen kind of the careers education side. I'd seen like the local jobs, the skills, that kind of thing, and was quite aware of that. But I think coming into the other side and just realizing there's so much more to it, there's so much more that we can do, so much more we can get involved with the communities, and then all the kind of I feel quite privileged that actually all of the legislative changes have happened this year, because it means that I'm not so stuck in my ways with all the old, and I've just got to get my head around the new, and actually the change between the two isn't such a daunting thing. I think for a lot of people it has been. So for me, that's been, I feel like I've really got into it at the right time, and I'm really grateful that Ash, before my joining, already were doing so many wonderful things, recording everything so well, and really saw the value in social value before it was, as Paul said, it was kind of mandated, really. So I feel like I've got into it at a really exciting time, and I'm really excited to see kind of where it goes.
Maxine, same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, similarly to Natalie's background, so my background kind of lies more in kind of schools engagement, careers. I've lived through a number of education policy changes, so seen from that side how careers and skills development and opportunity and work experience has really been shaped and shifted over the last kind of 10 to 15 years, and how critical it is to have employer-led engagement with our young people, to understand what opportunities there are that arise, how to network and create opportunities for yourself within your local communities. And so I've seen the shift on that side of the coin, and so it's been really interesting to now be this side of the table in terms of the construction industry and infrastructure. And actually, I think from a new person to the sector, it seems to have really revolutionized culture within organizations. So I was actually really taken aback by how Octavius has always done and has truly embraced the need for delivering social value in the right way. And so, when we talk about inclusivity, when we talk about access, when we talk about opportunity to employment, when we talk about, staff and supply chain and community well-being, that all absolutely sits at the heart of Octavius as an organization. And I think coming into the industry, that was really refreshing to see that actually there was already that alignment. So I was really kind of given a mandate to be able to just connect those two things up, take what we do and what we deliver and how we do it, and reconnect with my former network to really kind of bring the two together and make great things happen, particularly in that area of young people and skills development.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much to you two for those answers there, and to all three of you for what has been an excellent session of Pagabo Live. We've got one final audience poll just popping up on screen of whether you'd like to hear more about how Pagabo can help your organisation with social value in procurement. But that is unfortunately all we've got time for today. Thank you once again for tuning in. We've had a really good and really engaged audience, so thank you very much for helping make this as good a session as it has been. You are now all, by signing up today, part of the Pagabo Live community, so you will receive a link for all of our upcoming Pagabo Live sessions. There's also a newsletter coming out around a week after each of these Pagabo Live sessions, which will also include a recording of the webinar in video and podcast form, along with some further insights from the team. So feel free to make sure you're sharing that with your colleagues if you feel they may be interested in the content of this webinar. You'll also be able to claim a CPD credit for today's session. You'll receive an email from Pagabo in the coming days to show how you can do that. Our next Pagabo Live is in just around a month's time, on Wednesday, November the 19th. We'll be talking about reimagining consultancy in conversation with our good friends at Atkins Realis. Well, all that's left to be said is thank you very much to our panel, to our audience, and thank you very much for tuning in today. We hope to see you again next time.